question.
Yo, what's up?
Do you think that...
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel, Morgan Allena True Crime and Mystery. Today we are going to be getting into another video on Gypsy Rose Blanchard and exposing her history of pathological lying, you know, the usual thing that we have always done, especially on my channel. If you're not familiar with, I like to go through and compare Gypsy Rose Blanchard's documentaries and interviews that she's done in the past, and there is a lot of them, and kind of compare them to each other and see where she's changed her story or where the lies come from. If you haven't watched my other videos that are similar to this one, go check those out. If you are somebody that believes Gypsy Rose Blanchard's story, definitely go check those out. We're going to be going through a couple things and some new crime scene photos, and by new I mean newer to a lot of people, and I want to show you some things that I noticed in some of the photos that I hadn't really paid attention to before. Just some small details that are probably or have been overlooked in the past. I've seen a good majority of these, except for just like the random ones that are mostly of like Gypsy's clothes and stuff like that. But there were a couple that I viewed on Reddit, and I want to go through them. So that's what we're going to be getting into today. As always, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, hitting the like button, and also make sure that you are subscribed to my channel if you like these videos or like the videos that I put out. Always make sure to check if you're subscribed, because my channel does like to kick people off and unsubscribe them for whatever reason. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into today's video on Gypsy Rose Blanchard. So there's not really been a whole lot going with Gypsy so far this week. Obviously, she posted a video on her TikTok going through some, I think it was I Am a Killer documentary that is on Netflix, a series, and she was going through talking about women that she had been in prison with, which it was kind of funny / ironic that she was talking about some of the women that have no remorse, because we all know that Gypsy herself doesn't know what remorse is. Honestly, she truly cannot feel remorse, and she does not. She's made that abundantly clear. Gypsy also made sure to mention that her daughter did not inherit her chromosome microdeletion. Glad to hear that, essentially. I did not want the baby to have that. I don't wish any harm or anything negative to that baby. The baby is totally innocent, and I'm sure a good majority of us would agree with that. We don't want anything bad to happen to the baby. We feel bad for the baby because, well, you know, you can't really pick your parents, I guess. But she made sure to announce that, although she always makes sure to tell everybody that she's totally unscathed and denied it for the longest time, you know, whatever. It is what it is. So last night I literally made this video entirely. And the next day today when I got up to go back and review it and start editing, the entire thing was messed up. The audio was messed up with the track, and it was cutting in and out. I guess because of my mic, it wasn't working, and I just kept talking and I didn't check it throughout. So I have to remake the entire thing. So right now I'm trying a different setup. I'm on my computer and filming it through a different setup, so maybe this will work out easier. I'm not sure yet. But I was also watching a live on TikTok yesterday. It was really, really late. I want to say it was like 2 in the morning. And of course it was Bri that was on there, and she was just going off. I don't know why she has so much energy so late at night. And she was essentially trash talking Fancy and saying Fancy lies and all of the creators lie, and that Gypsy has never lied about anything related to the medical files. I'm going to play you a couple parts of this that I found kind of ridiculous of Bri, and then we're going to talk about that a little bit.
Him for not being able to get a A's or a tag. Yeah, you didn't read that part of that video. You only read the toothbrush part, right? Yeah, of course. Yeah, you only like to read what fits your narrative. Because that's what they do when they can't give answers. Like, I'm explaining, I'm telling you things that are in there. She's like, oh, she did this, she did that. Like, why don't you, you still haven't answered my first question, how she lied about her medical abuse. How do you lie about, she was medically abused, so how did she lie about it? You still haven't answered that question. You know what it's sad, Fancy, though? I watched your old videos. You used to make so much sense. When your heart wasn't hardened and hatred and a vendetta didn't take over your life. It's actually sad because you actually used to sound sane. You used to sound logical. And I hate this for you. I really do, because I watched those videos, and this was even after you and Gypsy had y'all little, you would say little snarky commentary in there, but you still stuck to the truth. to being obsessed with this family and thinking everything, even down to Rez, I think it's connected to Christy Blanchard. Like, you and Woo Woo are like the dream team at this point. Like, everything that happens in your life, you blame it on Christy Blanchard. See, this because everything that I've said, I've stated what I'm claiming. She sat there and said, oh, that's all Gypsy did was lie, but she couldn't name one single lie for me. You didn't have to go through a list. You could have just named one, Fancy. I would have taken one. I always tell y'all that. I mean, y'all say it so confidently, like y'all, as if y'all have a whole fucking PDF file full. But I'm like, look, well, that's fine. She's never said she had 100 surgeries.
She's never said she had 100 surgeries.
Been under anesthesia?
Probably over 100, probably.
And do you know what the side effects of that are? Like, do you have, I think I've read something about like short-term memory or long-term memory. Do you feel like you feel any side effects, long-term effects from it?
I haven't noticed any so far, which I feel like I'm blessed for that.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, going under anesthesia, when I was a kid, I didn't ask questions.
Right.
Probably over 100, probably.
And of course she's singling out Fancy, and Bri's the type that she's going to run her mouth so much and not give you a chance to let you get a word in or anything, so there's really no point in arguing with her. I was watching and I almost thought about commenting in the live, but I was just didn't want to even get into any of it. But what Bri should know is that Gypsy has lied about almost every single thing that she had done. For one, all-encompassing lie is the fact that she said she never needed any of those procedures. That is a lie. She needed every single one of them. That is medically proven. 2, she said her muscle biopsy came back normal. That's a lie. It was abnormal. 3, she said she was been under anesthesia over 100 times. That's a lie. There's those examples for you right there. But no, Bri wants to sit there and say, oh, my followers are loyal to me because I'm honest and I tell the truth. No, your followers are probably loyal to you because A, they are obsessed with Gypsy in an odd way and they attach themselves to her, and 2, they lack critical thinking skills, which is unfortunate, but that is a good majority of people nowadays. They don't have critical thinking skills and the ability to look past their feelings and understand that things are not always what they appear. And I think that is a good reason why a lot of people support Gypsy. They get too involved with their own personal feelings and their own emotions to actually focus on what's going on and what happened. It totally blinds them, and that is something that you cannot do, especially when you're looking at cases like this where they're disturbing, it's dark, and it's twisted, and you have to understand that people are not how they present, ever. And I've had a few discussions with Bri in the past, but I overwhelmingly try to avoid getting into any sort of conversation with Bri because she's just one of those people where although you may be loud, that doesn't mean you're right. She's always yelling and she's so aggressive with things, and that's just not my style. We can have a discussion or we can have a disagreement, but we don't need to start going, like crazy over things. And her following, not only her, but her following is just unhinged. They are unhinged. They start attacking people's profiles and reporting and stuff like that. So it's just not something that I want to deal with or get involved with, but I will correct when she's wrong. Another thing she was wrong about and lied about is the fact that she just got her teeth removed for no reason, as if that would ever happen. She had horrible cavities, not caused by anything, not caused by chemo, which Gypsy also lied about, not caused by her mom just saying, oh, her teeth hurt, let's rip them out. That's also a lie she's told. She lied about her microdeletion for the longest time. She said she was unaffected. She said the only thing wrong with her was a lazy eye. Also, another lie. But Bri is so loud, people think she's right. And that's not how it works. Actual facts and the actual information is what shows what really happened. Bri is also somebody that conveniently leaves out information, or she'll, hide the paperwork and then show one sentence. That's not being honest either. And plus, Bri, if you're so honest, why were you advising Gypsy to lie to her PO?
Yes, that's why I feel like there's no way they could send you back to prison on this. Like, I would even bring up that, be like, I absolutely did never, like, I would be like, I would lie. I would say, absolutely didn't. And
I would lie. I would say, absolutely didn't. And
but she wants to talk about integrity. Whatever. Not my problem. But regardless, let's get into the crime scene photos and review some of the interesting things that have come up in discussions lately. One of which was the whole slave contract that was brought up. This has been brought up multiple times by Mike Stanfield, by Gypsy. Mike wanted to kind of portray it as like a bill of sale, as if Gypsy was being sold to Nick by force, like an actual slavery thing. No. For one, we all know Gypsy enjoyed 50 Shades of Grey. She cosplayed as Anastasia Steele, whatever, from the 50 Shades of Grey movie and book. She even told Nicholas to watch that movie whenever they were first going to be together. She wanted to make sure that he knew exactly what she was into. Plus, if you read through the paperwork, it's very clear that Gypsy wrote it herself. And it only makes sense that she would go to the efforts of typing this up. But if you read through one outline of what was required for this, she accidentally put in the wrong form of who's speaking. So if it was Nick writing it, he would always put my, so my blank is your playground. So I think it's like number 14 or whatever on this list, or whatever number it is. Had Nick been the one to write that, he would have said my blank is your playground, and she is the one that put your blank is my playground. So she's clearly the one typing it. She's clearly the one writing it out. If you've ever watched 50 Shades of Grey or read the book especially, you know they have a whole contract in there that is required for the submissives to sign. Gypsy is well aware of that. Gypsy most likely came up with this because she was into it. We know Gypsy was into this stuff, and it's not like Nick introduced her to this, because that's well established that Dan said that him and Gypsy did this together as well. She was into this way before Nicholas Godejohn, in spite of her saying that Nick introduced her to this like she said a million times. That's dishonest and it's not right. Another thing that I found kind of interesting in these crime scene photos was the calendar that is on the fridge that they had put up. If you look at it, I'm going to show you a picture here. If you read what it says on there, all of it says on this calendar that is scheduled for this month is movies. Obviously, we know Gypsy and Dee Dee got free tickets to go see pretty much any movie that they wanted because they were friends with the manager at the theater. So every week, multiple times a week, even sometimes they were going to go to the movies. So you can see it inside out. All these movies that were scheduled to come out, that's what's on the calendar. You know what's not on the calendar? Doctor's visits. Where's that scheduled surgery that Gypsy claimed was supposed to happen, and that's the reason why she had to kill her mom when she did? Where is that at? Why is that not on the calendar? Because it was never scheduled, and it wasn't ever going to happen. She lied about that entire thing, and as a matter of fact, we're going to get into that a little bit later, and I'm going to prove to you exactly how she lied and what the actual story is behind that surgery. It's not a surgery even. She claimed in her book that her mother wanted to slit her throat and silence her voice because they were going to do some kind of surgery to find out why her voice is so high-pitched. All lies. None of that's true at all. And it's easily proven. But before we do that, let's look at this other photo. We know that Gypsy has said in the past a million times, whenever she found out her real age, that she discovered it. One time she said it was in the safe. She found paperwork, or her mother's wallet, or something like that. She found these papers that proved how old she was, and that's why she ran away to Dan. Well, Dan said that she carried with her a big binder of paperwork, of medical records. And if you look at this totally negates everything Gypsy has ever said about that, because all of the paperwork is right there in the filing cabinet, perfectly filed under Gypsy's medical records. So it was some big discovery? No, because it was there the entire time. So there's no way that Gypsy would ever think that she was really 14 or however old she was. She had the full capability of reading all of those records at any time. Which we know that already, but it's just like, how are you going to lie about that when there's literal photo proof of it? And not only that, there was paperwork and records throughout the entire house. In that junk room that they had that was piled high, there was binders and records. They posted on Facebook at one point that they were going to go pick up records. That was Gypsy's profile. That was Gypsy writing that stuff on there. Gypsy was fully aware of what her medical records say, and it's always been a lie. Dee Dee never hid anything from her. She didn't ever believe that she had any of these problems. She was fully aware that it was a scam and that she benefited from this scam. Aside from the few medical issues that she did have, which were very real because she does have a chromosome microdeletion, which is why every single procedure that Gypsy ever received were medically necessary. I think that's where people get caught up, is like they don't understand that it's a little bit of both. Dee Dee did not medically abuse her, but Gypsy did have procedures, but she needed them. She wasn't as sick as what she was made out to be, but she does have issues. She does have struggles. Now, those struggles probably wouldn't equate to Make-A-Wish trips, multiple Disney vacations, and things like that. But she still had issues. She got treated for those issues and nothing more. That is why she did not go to the doctor as many times as what she's trying to allege. She was never scheduled to go have a major surgery without anesthesia like she claimed in her book just before she killed her mother. There's no evidence of that whatsoever. The only thing she had done, which she told to Dr. Phil, was that she got her feeding tube changed. And this is at the same point in time where Gypsy said she had it done hundreds of times, when I think they were probably only going like once a year. Honestly, they were not going even as often as they should, because Dee Dee was not forcing her to undergo any sort of excessive medical treatment. All of the medications that are in that closet, a lot of them were expired. And a lot of them were just over-the-counter medications, pretty much. You can get prescription versions of over-the-counter meds, like Miralax, propylene glycol 3500, stuff like that. It may look like it's a prescription medication, but you can just buy all of that over the counter. A good majority of them were just antibiotics, because Gypsy had chronic ear infections. So what do you get for an infection? An antibiotic. There's nothing really overwhelmingly dangerous or deadly in this cabinet. And that's probably why she had to continue to get the medications, just to, keep it. And if Dee Dee was a little bit of a hoarder, which she probably was, she probably just decided to get it just in case she ever needed it. I do that same thing. Sometimes if I have a refill for a medication that I haven't used, I'll get it just in case like the end of the world comes and I need medication, which I'm a little weird like that, but not to that extent of what Dee Dee was, but I do think like that for some reason, which, it's not the point, but whatever. Everything that Dee Dee and Gypsy does, it just reminds me of that SpongeBob episode where that guy is pretending to be super ill.
What can I do for you boys? Hello, sir. Would you like to buy a chocolate bar? We need an operation. Really? Small world. What's the matter with you guys? We've got some head trauma and eternal bleeding. Some guys have all the luck. I was born with glass bones and paper skin. Every morning I break my legs, and every afternoon I break my arms. At night, I lie awake in agony until my heart attacks put me to sleep. Oh, no! Ow. Quick, Patrick, let's help him! Careful! Put him down gently. Oh! Poor man. If there's anything we can do to help you... There is one thing. As you can well imagine, my medical bills are extremely high. But luckily I'm able to keep myself alive by selling chocolate bars. It does my heart good to con a couple of Class A suckaroonies like those two.
Watch that episode, but it reminds me of Gypsy every time I think about it, just based on the stuff that they did, because that's like the extent of what this whole thing was really about. It was all about a fraud, and it was all about a scam. It wasn't anything to do with Munchausen syndrome by proxy, because Munchausen syndrome by proxy doesn't just start and then stop randomly. It is like a mental issue. It's an obsession with the attention, and that need for attention doesn't just stop. But I want to read this paper to you that was written. It was from under the bed, and I thought it was so hilarious just reading it. So again, take it with probably a 90% accuracy. I'm not going to read the full thing, but this paper says, I assume this was written by Dee Dee as well, but it says, Gypsy Rose Blanchard is a very special student using the School of Tomorrow curriculum. Gypsy lives with her mom in Louisiana. Her father deserted the family after Gypsy's birth and has contributed nothing to her support. Dee Dee's instantly going in and trashing Rod, which is, it's kind of funny to me. 3 sentences in and she's already trashing him. It says, although she is only 8 years old, Gypsy has already endured more than most will ever face. She is confined to a wheelchair, must be fed through a tube, and suffers from asthma, epilepsy, and Faderman's anemia, a form of leukemia. If there are any medical professionals watching this video, I want you to tell me whether or not this is actually a real type of anemia or if this was made up. I couldn't tell for sure if it said Faderman's or Falterman's, or if those are anything at all that exists. I tried to look it up and I couldn't see anything. I found like another one that started with F, but I wasn't sure if this is just like a name of a specific type of anemia that could be classified as a type of leukemia. I found that a little bit interesting because maybe Gypsy technically did have some form of leukemia with her chromosome deletion, but not actual leukemia. Just a thought, I don't know. If you guys are medical professionals or you are aware of any type of anemia that sounds familiar to this, let me know, because it kind of intrigued me, but I just couldn't find the information that I was looking for on whether or not this was like an actual thing. I know there are a lot of like medical terms that are not used everywhere, so maybe it could be something like that. Or if there is a type of anemia that is classified as leukemia, put it in the comments down below because I'm curious. But it says a form of leukemia. She is vision and hearing impaired, microcephalic, and developmentally delayed. In spite of some of her handicaps and the many surgeries she has undergone, Gypsy is a joyful little girl who loves Jesus and shares that love with all who meet her. On her way to the hospital recently for yet another surgery, Gypsy selflessly said to her mother, "Jesus wants us to feed his sheep. Let's give some food to those who are hungry." After they stopped for food, Gypsy rolled down the window under a freeway and handed the bag to an elderly homeless woman and said, "Jesus loves you." Gypsy is working in second-level PACES and is determined to read her Bible through during the school year. Her mother wrote to the School of Tomorrow recently with this report. Gypsy obviously did not read her Bible through because she probably didn't even get through the 10 Commandments of honor your father and your mother, but whatever. Dear School of Tomorrow, thank you all so much for the school supplies, encouragement, and most of all, the prayers. As you know, Gypsy's father, who was responsible for paying for her schooling, insisted that we use another company because he didn't want her to have any Christian teachings. We totally refused, so he refused to pay for anything. We have always loved the School of Tomorrow and have always been very pleased and satisfied. Your instructions are so thorough and easy to understand that it makes my job teaching a breeze. I was so worried when I first started Gypsy on the program that it would be too hard for her, and it kind of goes on a little bit. I'm basically saying that the schoolwork is easy. I can't really make it out, but if you can read it right there. But I just found that like almost hilarious how Dee Dee instantly went in on Rod refusing to pay for anything. But again, going back to that whole calendar thing where there is no scheduled appointments or anything that is shown on that calendar, which I imagine she would be writing it on there if Dee Dee said that she had a bad memory after that car accident, which she said multiple times and it's documented throughout the records, which is also why she told doctors that she couldn't remember every single issue that Gypsy had and to not really quote her on everything because she may or may not be wrong because of her memory. She would have written those scheduled appointments on that calendar, which makes sense because whenever they went to go get Gypsy's feeding tube changed, they just went to the ER. That wasn't a scheduled visit. So she was sitting there telling Dr. Phil she wanted it out and she didn't want to do it. That's a lie. And then in her book, she sits there and says her mother was going to slit her throat. She was going to take her voice. Which is like, what? The Little Mermaid she wants to be like in this movie. She obviously just made that TikTok recently where she was trying to be a smart aleck. Again, she's told on herself. She brings up Tangled. That's where she gets her chained in the bedroom story from. That's where she gets a lot of this. That's what she used to manipulate Nicholas Godejohn, saying it's the only way, therefore making him come to rescue her. She was using that to brainwash Nicholas Godejohn into thinking that this was her situation. But she thinks she's slick or smart or funny doing that. She really just tells on herself. She sits there in her book and says that her mom was going to have this exploratory surgery done. And not only that, but she was going to force her to do it without anesthesia. Because she has a fear of tubes going down her throat or something. And her mom was going to punish her for being bad by giving her a surgery to cut her throat. and that it was scheduled to happen, and she was freaking out and didn't know what she was going to do. She was going to lose her voice. She loved her voice. Why is this happening?
Arguments would occur anytime that I would get caught on the computer, on social media, if I didn't want to take medication that night. And at this point, my mother had scheduled more surgeries, more medication. I was scheduled for another procedure to have on my throat. It was going to be a surgeon to look into why I have such a high-pitched voice, because it was something to do that my larynx didn't close properly. I have a big fear of tubes being put down my throat or my nose or anything. For all my other procedures, I was put under general anesthesia. And I asked her, I'm like, can you make sure that they put me to sleep? And she's like, no, you're old enough now. I'm terrified at this point.
Let's go over what actually happened with the records. But according to Gypsy Blanchard's medical records, Gypsy already had a laryngoscopy scheduled and performed in 2009 by Dr. Beckerman, many years prior to Claudine Blanchard's murder. The record indicates a vocal cord weakness as the main suspicion for the exploratory surgery, with the results being as follows. It was performed under a light general anesthesia as well, so she wasn't forced to be awake the entire time. It says there was evidence of edema or swelling of the nasal passages consistent with allergic rhinitis, aka allergies, edema of the false vocal cords, and a septal deviation. Minimal and no abduction of the vocal cords until stimulated. When the patient's pulse ox saturation was at 90%, there was mild abduction. There was mild abduction of the vocal cords, but not complete abduction. There was, however, insignificant abduction. Even with stimulation, the subglottic space from above the supraglottic view appeared to be normal. The patient had no abnormal bleeding, and the procedure took 5 minutes after anesthesia. There was not any other complications, with the exception of a mild intermittent desaturation because of shallow breathing, so her oxygen was getting a little low. Because of shallow breathing, the patient was then to undergo multiple dental extractions. So this was done at the same time Gypsy had her teeth taken out because of severe cavities. It was a 5-minute thing, not even including the general anesthesia, which she was put under for because she was put under for the procedure to get her teeth taken out. And it has been mentioned in the record multiple times that Gypsy wanted to be put under anesthesia because she did not tolerate procedures in office well. She was the one that did not tolerate standard procedures. For example, her ear tubes, when she was getting those taken out, they could have done it in the office, but the patient did not, aka the patient being Gypsy, did not tolerate it, so they had to schedule her to be put under. Gypsy's final diagnosis after the 5-minute procedure in 2009 was a vocal cord weakness. So a vocal cord weakness can cause symptoms, depending on the severity, for things like a weak voice, a difficulty modulating your pitch, shortness of breath, noisy breathing, stridor, or a whistling sound whenever you're breathing, difficulty swallowing, choking, coughing during swallowing, and food getting stuck in your throat. Which Gypsy did have swallow studies done, and they were looking for reasons why she was choking, especially in the middle of the night. She's well aware of this. She had a 5-minute procedure, and she made it up to be some huge ordeal that her mom was going to slit her throat while she was awake, as if the doctors are just going to do that and not give the patient the opportunity to have any say. If Gypsy would have sat there without anesthesia and was freaking out, they wouldn't continue with the procedure regardless. She made the entire scenario up. And though there's not a doctor that will perform a procedure just based on the words of a mother, I don't think to even exist. Especially one on Medicare or Medicaid, whatever one they were on. It's not going to happen, ever. If anything, when you're on a government insurance, you have to do 10 times the amount of stuff and steps in alternative treatments before they'll let you go to like the most dramatic one. They try a million other alternatives because they have certain sequences of events that you have to go through. You have to try this medicine, then you have to try this one, then you got to try this treatment before they'll do like a major operation because they don't want to pay for it. And similar to how Mike Stanfield lied about the whole slave contract and put it out as like a bill of sale type of thing, which is not true, obviously, he did the same thing about Gypsy's mental incompetence papers. That's always a huge point that's brought up among people that support Gypsy, or even Gypsy herself and her family. They always bring up these mental incompetence papers, and I've seen comments about this on my own videos questioning. Gypsy stated her mother had these papers filled out naming her as mentally incompetent, so should she ever try to run away, then the cops would bring her right back because Gypsy can't think for herself, she's crazy, she's not smart, and she needs her mother to look out for her. All of that is a lie. None of that even existed. This was stated multiple times throughout the years by Gypsy, her attorney, and others. It's just not true. Mike Stanfield knows that Gypsy signed paperwork requested by the medical staff in order to see her, because at that point Gypsy was over 18 years old, and a social worker called Gypsy to explain this to her, and Gypsy approved it and signed the paperwork for power of attorney. She knows that. There was records of it. You can look right here and see where Gypsy filled out this paperwork. She spoke to a social worker herself, and she signed that power of attorney over to her mom. And that's not even the same thing as being incompetent. It's incapacitated. When you get power of attorney, you're giving somebody the right to make decisions over you should you become incapacitated or in a coma, unable to speak for yourself. That's completely different than incompetent. You don't even have to be the smartest individual, or you can still be determined to make your own decisions if you struggle with certain things. So that doesn't automatically mean you lose your ability to speak up for yourself and what you want. And that's not what happened to Gypsy. Even though Gypsy was, said a little bit to be like mentally delayed or intellectually delayed, she still had the ability to make medical decisions on her own, aside from being in the case should she go into a coma or be in some sort of accident where she cannot speak for herself. That is what she signed. That is the proof. She spoke to a social worker at the hospital because they would not perform a visit or an operation or some small thing for her prior to that without that paperwork saying that it was okay. And that's no big deal. Anybody that's ever been to the doctor ever has signed power of attorney paperwork. You can change it at any moment should you decide. I've probably put 4 different people on mine because it's no big deal. It just depends on who I'm around. And I put my sister, I put my dad. That doesn't mean they reserve any right to anything unless I'm in some sort of incident where I can't decide for myself. Basically, those life-changing moments. That's it. But instead, they want to make it out to be this big thing and make Dee Dee the villain because that's what they had to do in order to make Gypsy a victim. And it's all lies. All of it is a lie. It's not surprising that Gypsy is believed the way that she is because the lies that she comes up with, they're full of detail. Of course, she takes those details from other things, and that's why they tend to make a little bit of sense, or they seem familiar, or like they could possibly have happened, because she's taking those things, she's taking those events, whether she experienced them or not, and pretending that they're her own. She's using familiar ideas from movies or from people, stuff that she can easily remember. That's why her lies are so believable to so many people. As a matter of fact, I've been watching through all of her documentaries and her interviews, like I said, and going through and comparing them all. And funny enough, fun fact for you, Bri, since apparently Gypsy doesn't lie about anything, in her first episode of season 1 of Life After Lockup, which I was totally going to avoid watching this because it's so... I didn't want to go through the whole Ryan and Gypsy crap, and I just forgot how annoying Ryan actually is in that season. He was just too much for me, but regardless, he didn't deserve to be, publicly humiliated or anything like that. Gypsy says her periods are totally normal, has no issue. She had 2 paps in the prison and they were totally fine. So why is it that all of a sudden she comes back later on, she got pregnant with Ken, saying she had to go to a doctor because they weren't sure if she was ovulating? She's had normal periods. She's been tracking her periods. Therefore, she totally tricked Ken and planned it, which we all know that. But she forgets that she said that publicly, and Mia was the one that asked her if she thought that there would be any issue of her getting pregnant. She said, no, I don't think so.
Okay, do you want kids right away? I mean, I want kids. I don't think that right away would be smart. Great. Do you think that all the medication and the surgeries may have hindered your ability? I'm hoping not. I've had regular periods. I've had 2 pap smears in prison. They all came back normal.
Gypsy literally took that information of what Mia said about a possibility in order to trick Ken, manipulate everybody so she could get pregnant and baby trap Ken. And it's not surprising at all why he's so distant, and it seems like their relationship has just gone downhill so incredibly quickly. Because the first time that they spent a weekend together, she got pregnant because she was planning it. There was no issue with her fertility. There's nothing wrong with her. She said she had normal periods, and with normal periods comes the ability to get pregnant. She just lied because it was convenient for her to do it, and she had to find something or some reason to how this happened. There was no accident. She planned it. She probably planned it for that exact weekend because she knew she would be ovulating. Totally honest, and Bri's totally honest. It's crazy to me. All of these lies, they just pile up, and the same story has so many different lies. And yet Gypsy wants to sit there and talk about other women that don't have remorse in prison. It's kind of funny, isn't it? How that happens. But, there's so many interviews that she's done over and over and over again that it's hard to keep up. I'm still taking notes. I'm still going through them. If you guys think of any single major issue or lie that you want me to go through and point out, or find the contradictions, make sure to put them in the comments, because I do read the comments a lot and I see what you guys are saying. And if you bring up a point, I do go and search it and try to, make my notes of it and clip the moments that they happened for you guys, just to have a place where you can see. And if you guys know anybody that you're trying to get them to see what is going on with Gypsy Rose, share these videos, send them to my channel, and let them see the information for themselves. This is the reason why I do it, because there are a lot of people that get manipulated by this, and it needs to stop. A good majority of Gypsy's fans are young kids. I've seen someone saying this the other day. A good majority of them are teens. That's why they're so difficult to reach, because they are not old enough to make wise decisions or have critical thinking. They're in high school or middle school, and that is who Gypsy is influencing. And you can't pretend that it's not going to have an effect on these kids, especially this whole influencer type of thing where it's the parasocial relationships are, unreal, especially within Gypsy's following. They really think that they know her and that she cares about them, but they don't. Even Bri. Hate to break it to you, Bri, but Gypsy does not care about you. She likes you because you do things for her. Should anything come back negatively to Gypsy, she would drop you in a second, just like she did to Nick and every single other friend that she's ever had, because Gypsy is not capable of forming meaningful relationships. I'm sorry. It is what it is. But that will be it for today's video. Let me know what you guys think. And obviously this video is probably going to look a little bit different because I've been doing some different things on my computer and trying to get a better setup, because that whole video being wasted and the amount of time that I wasted in making a video that I couldn't even use was annoying. But regardless, I'm going to be going through and forming new videos. So make sure to like this video and hit the subscribe button if you have not already, or even if you have. Make sure your notifications are turned on so you can keep up with any new video that I've got coming out on my channel. I appreciate all of you guys for supporting me. I will see you guys next time. Bye.